Home is supposed to be the safest place we know, a place of routine, of trust, of family. But in rare and devastating cases, the greatest danger comes from inside the house itself. Across the United States, a pattern emerges in some of the most shocking crimes ever recorded. Men who murdered the very families they were expected to protect. These are not stories of strangers or random violence. They are stories of control, deception, pressure, and collapse. Tonight, we examine 8 real cases, each confirmed by court records, investigations, and journalism, to understand how ordinary lives unraveled into irreversible tragedy. In August 2018, Shanann Watts returned home to Frederick, Colorado after a business trip. She was 15 weeks pregnant. Her daughters, Bella and Celeste, were asleep in their beds. By morning, all 3 were gone. Her husband, Chris Watts, told police he had no idea where his family was. He pleaded to the media, asking for their safe return. But investigators noticed something unsettling: his calm demeanor, shifting timelines, and lack of urgency. Within days, Watts failed a polygraph test. He confessed. Chris Watts admitted to killing his pregnant wife during an argument, then murdering his 2 young daughters. He transported their bodies to an oil site where he worked, hiding them in separate locations. Prosecutors later revealed the motive: an affair and a desire to start a new life without responsibility. In November 2018, Watts was sentenced to life in prison without parole. The case became a chilling example of how appearances, social media posts, smiling photos, suburban calm can hide catastrophic violence. Case 2 John List. On November 9, 1971, in the quiet town of Westfield, New Jersey, John List made a calculated decision. One by one, he murdered his mother, his wife, and his 3 children inside their own home. He placed their bodies carefully in the ballroom, turned on religious music, wrote letters explaining that he believed he had saved his family from financial ruin and moral corruption. Then John List disappeared. For nearly a month, no one noticed the bodies. List had canceled deliveries, contacted schools, and erased signs of daily life. He lived under a new identity for 18 years, remarried, worked, and blended into society. In 1989, after his case aired on America's Most Wanted, he was recognized and arrested. John List was convicted of 5 counts of murder and sentenced to life in prison, where he died in 2008. His case remains one of the most methodical and chilling family murders in U.S. history. Case 3 Scott Peterson. On Christmas Eve 2002, Lachi Peterson, 8 months pregnant, vanished from her home in Modesto, California. Her husband, Scott Peterson, told police she had gone for a walk. He appeared on television, begging for her return. But investigators uncovered a secret. Scott was involved in an extramarital affair and had told another woman he had lost his wife. In April 2003, the bodies of Lachi and her unborn son washed ashore in San Francisco Bay. Prosecutors argued Scott murdered his wife to escape marriage and impending fatherhood. He was convicted of first-degree murder and initially sentenced to death. That sentence was later overturned, but he remains incarcerated for life without parole. The case divided public opinion, sparked endless debate, and became one of the most media-covered family murders in American history. Case 4 Jeffrey MacDonald. In February 1970, Army Captain and Dr. Jeffrey MacDonald called police from his home at Fort Bragg. He claimed intruders had attacked his family. Inside, investigators found his pregnant wife and 2 young daughters brutally murdered. MacDonald survived with minor injuries, a detail that immediately raised suspicion. Physical evidence contradicted his story, and after years of investigation, he was charged. In 1979, MacDonald was convicted of murdering his wife and children and sentenced to life in prison. The case became famous through the book Fatal Vision and remains controversial decades later. But the verdict stands. The court concluded the violence came from inside the home. Case 5 Robert William Fisher. In April 2001, a house fire in Scottsdale, Arizona revealed a horrifying scene. Inside were the bodies of a mother and her 2 children, all shot. The husband and father, Robert William Fisher, was gone. Investigators determined the fire was set deliberately to destroy evidence. Fisher vanished into the wilderness and has never been found. He remains on the FBI's most wanted list. Whether dead or alive, his disappearance adds another layer of terror, a family annihilator who escaped justice. Case 6, Michael Ross. In the early 1980s, Michael Ross was a young man living in Connecticut who would later become known as the Roadside Strangler. But long before his notorious serial murders, Ross's first violent acts were domestic in nature. In 1981, he killed his own parents in a calculated attack. Investigators later determined the murders were motivated by a mix of anger, control, and desire to sever ties with family obligations. Ross was eventually arrested for a string of killings, including his parents' murder, and in 1985, he was convicted of 8 counts of murder. He was executed by lethal injection in 2005. His story serves as a stark reminder of how early family violence can precede even more widespread criminal behavior. Case 7, Drew Peterson. In Bolingbrook, Illinois, Drew Peterson, a former police sergeant, became the center of a scandal that captured national attention. In 2004, his third wife, Kathleen Savio, was found dead in her bathtub under suspicious circumstances. Initially ruled an accident, it was later revealed that Peterson may have played a role in her death. Subsequent investigation uncovered a chilling pattern. His fourth wife disappeared under mysterious circumstances, and his history of controlling behavior raised alarm. In 2012, Drew Peterson was convicted of murdering Kathleen Savio and sentenced to 38 years in prison. His case highlights how abusive control within a family can escalate into deadly outcomes, and how privilege and authority can delay justice. Case 9, Ronald DeFeo Jr. In the early morning hours of November 13, 1974, police responded to a frantic call from a young man in Amityville, New York. 23-year-old Ronald DeFeo Jr. claimed someone had murdered his family. Inside the DeFeo home, officers discovered one of the most shocking crime scenes in American history. 6 members of the DeFeo family, Ronald's parents and 4 younger siblings, were found shot to death in their beds. There were no signs of forced entry, no evidence of a struggle. Within hours, investigators began to focus on Ronald himself. His stories changed repeatedly, and gunshot residue was found on his hands. DeFeo eventually confessed to killing his entire family with a high-powered rifle, later offering contradictory explanations involving voices, drugs, and alleged conspiracies. In 1975, Ronald DeFeo Jr. was convicted of 6 counts of second-degree murder and sentenced to 6 consecutive life terms. The case later became widely known through its connection to the Amityville horror, but the real story, documented in court records, is far darker and entirely real. These crimes force us to confront an uncomfortable truth: violence doesn't always announce itself. It can hide behind routines, careers, and family photos. Understanding these cases isn't about fear, it's about awareness. Because sometimes the warning signs are quiet until it's too late.